reflecting on the story, on the trial, the persecution, and the death of Jesus, I have some wondering questions for you. Like, I wonder if you have ever been accused or attacked for something you didn't do. I wonder if in your family of origins, with your friends, at work, or at school, you've been in that position, that place where someone accused you of something you didn't do, or out of their own pain and anguish, they lashed out at you, said hurtful things, were mean to you. Not because of anything you deserved, not because of anything you did, but just because you were the one standing there at that time. Has that ever happened to you? Yeah. Seeing some brave souls nod. And what was that like? Reflecting to yourself, you don't have to answer my questions. What was that like? Did your blood boil? Did your heart speed up? Did your muscles clench, your jaw ache? And what did you want to do? Did you want to yell back? Did you want to declare your innocence, rise up in righteous anger, and punish them? Or perhaps you have a more calculated disposition. Did you lean back and count the days, maybe the hours, until you could catch them in some moment? Do you know what that righteous indignation might feel like? And then I wonder if you know about what the opposite side of that coin is. I wonder if you have ever attacked someone. They didn't deserve it. I wonder if you have ever been so mad and so upset about something going on in your life, and then there was an easy target, a family member, a friend, perhaps a pet, who became the target of that anger, that pain. And I wonder what that was like for you. I wonder if, for just a brief moment, it felt so relieving to have that anger and the pain out of your body and expelled out onto someone else or something else. I wonder if it felt some shame or dirty afterwards as you recognized they didn't deserve it. I wonder if you know about this dance that we heard in this passion narrative of retributive justice, of righteous anger, of being accused of something you hadn't done, of attacking someone who hadn't done anything wrong. Do you know about this cycle of violence we humans do? But don't worry, it's not just you. It's also not just me. But it's a marker of the world we live in. The easy target is, of course, talking about our politics, the way that politicians create these straw men, these straw women at times, these fake figures who they can attack and make the enemy of, whoever that enemy might be. That one or that group, that collection of beings get to be the bearers of our collective wrath and anger, our collective fear and pain. But it's not just politics. No. We see it in the violence that rages in Ukraine and in Russia, in Israel, in Gaza. We see it in the pain and the anguish of the stories of gun violence, stories of crime, stories of gang violence, the stories of how people like you and me get torn apart. We hear it in the stories of households that get rocked and destroyed by bitterness and resentment and rage. You hear it in the stories of your families and the stories of your friends. There is in our world, closer to home than that, in our communities and in our houses, these cycles of violence, of rage and anger, of wanting to blame the other person, to absolve oneself, and then recognizing I've done that and feeling the shame and the pain of that, which can so often keep that cycle unfolding, swirling and going around and around. And it is in such a cycle and a swarm that we hear in this story of Pilate and the chief priests and Jesus, that there arrives a man, one who is so fully human and so fully divine, one who has preached and spoken about love and forgiveness, one who has spoken about mercy and reconciliation, one who the night before all this happened stripped himself of his clothes, got down on his hands and knees, and washed his disciples' feet, and said, I give you a commandment to love one another. Indeed, this man, this one, enters into that cycle and that swirling retribution and interrupts it. It becomes Jesus' death on that cross becomes the sudden stop. It's like when Jesus was speaking to Pilate and said, if I were a king of this world, my followers would be fighting for me. But they don't, do they? Instead, we have a king who hangs on a cross and says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. They do not understand what they are doing. You have a man, a king, a leader of the people, who instead of inciting righteous indignation, who has every right to incite such righteous indignation, a man who has done nothing wrong, says to the soldier, if I've done something wrong, testify to the wrong. If not, then why do you hit me? Why do you strike me? Why do you slap me? In the face of such injustice, does not respond with retribution, but simply asks, why? 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 Why do you let this violence continue? Why do you respond? Why do you respond to me with such rage and anger? Why must you strike me? This was a king and a teacher who said, when they strike you, turn the other cheek. Indeed, on that cross, this cycle of violence gets interrupted. It's like in the midst of what could be just the continuing rage and anger of injustice, the rising of a mob to burn down the city, what could be the most formidable, the most in your gut, rageful indignation, this was wrong. There was instead a silence, a pause, a breath, and a death. And in that pause and death, and in that breath, something new could open. A new kind of opening could occur. Instead of the violence continuing to circulate, there was another choice to make. There was these disciples who could be so reformed in the image of love that they could keep walking into that temple even after Jesus' death and continue to pray to a God and continue to act in acts of mercy and love, could continue to heal and serve the poor. And that violence that lives in our system did not need to carry on, but instead could be transformed, could be shaped and changed by love, by something that could be so much more powerful than death, that could be transformed into grace, and by grace into forgiveness, into a breaking of the cycle, into being set free. Salvation from such violence, from such hatred and vitriol, from such swirling death and hell, that indeed God's kingdom could be in our midst.